Help us hit our first 1,000 subscribers. Your support drives us to create even more wonderful stories. Thanks for being part of our journey. In this video, my wife started staying late at work every night. I trusted her, until the night I walked into her office and saw something I'll never forget. Ethan had never questioned Claire's loyalty. Not in the 10 years they'd been married. She was ambitious, yes, and her job at a marketing agency demanded long hours, but for the past few weeks, something had shifted. Every evening, she came home later and later, sometimes near midnight. She'd step inside with a tired smile, smelling faintly of perfume she didn't usually wear. Her excuses were always the same. A client pitch, a last-minute presentation, a team brainstorm. Ethan wanted to believe her. He really did. He cooked dinner, cleaned up alone, then left a plate in the oven for her, untouched more often than not. What gnawed at him most wasn't the hours. It was the way Claire stopped reaching for him at night, the way her phone stayed face down. One Thursday evening, Ethan sat in the kitchen, staring at the door. It was nearly 11:00 p.m. He checked her location. Still at the office, supposedly, but something didn't sit right. He remembered that morning when she left the house in heels too tall for just another day of emails, and lipstick too bold for client calls. That same feeling crept up now and made his fingers twitch against his coffee mug. He shook the thought away. Maybe he was overreacting. Maybe she really was just stressed. Still, a part of him whispered something was wrong, and that part of him, it was getting louder. But Ethan wasn't ready to face what that might mean. Not yet, not until he had proof. So he poured himself another cup of lukewarm coffee and waited. You won't believe what Ethan finds next. Keep watching, because the real story begins in the next chapter. Coming up next, what really happened when Claire said she was just working late. The next morning, Ethan sat on the edge of their bed, watching Claire as she got ready. She hummed to herself, hair wrapped in a towel, scrolling through her phone like nothing was wrong. But Ethan couldn't stop thinking about the unanswered call from last night. The one she ignored even though her phone was in her hand. Did you get home all right? He asked softly, trying to sound casual. Claire smiled briefly and nodded. Yeah, just exhausted. We were working on that campaign for Green Tech. I left around midnight. Ethan nodded, hiding his doubt, but his mind was racing. He knew for a fact Green Tech's office closed at 10. He didn't say anything. He just filed it away in the growing pile of things that didn't add up. Her makeup bag was missing from the bathroom drawer. 2. That afternoon, he decided to swing by her office. Just a surprise visit, he told himself. He brought her a coffee, something he hadn't done in months, but when he arrived, the receptionist looked confused. Claire? She repeated, glancing at her monitor. She's out today. Took a personal day. Ethan froze. Personal day? She told him she had 3 meetings and a team briefing. So where was she? He walked out, heart pounding in his chest. He stood on the sidewalk, coffee in hand, staring at the traffic but seeing none of it. The lies were no longer whispers in his head. They were screaming. What is Claire hiding? And where did she really go that day? You won't want to miss what Ethan discovers next. Stay with us. Up next, things get darker in ways Ethan never imagined. That evening, Ethan sat alone at the dining table, swirling his untouched coffee, the steam long gone. Claire had texted him she'd be home late. Again, client dinner, she wrote, adding a winking emoji at the end like it was supposed to ease something, but Ethan wasn't smiling. The lie from earlier that day at her office was still sitting heavy in his chest. And there was something else now. He remembered the bracelet. 3 weeks ago, Claire had come home with a new gold bracelet. When he asked about it, she said it was a gift from one of the company's partners for the successful pitch they did. But something about the way she said it, the pause before gift, the way her eyes didn't meet his, it gnawed at him. Now, the name Green Tech kept ringing in his ears. So he did what he'd never done before. He opened her laptop. It was there on the kitchen counter, closed, unguarded. His hands trembled as he lifted the lid. She had a password, but it was the same one they used for their Netflix account. Her idea of keeping things simple. He opened her email. He didn't have to scroll far. There, In her inbox was a thread titled, "Last night was unforgettable." And it wasn't from Green Tech. It was from a man named Julian Marks. Julian wasn't a name Ethan had ever heard her mention, but the thread went back 2 months. It was filled with flirty banter, late-night plans, and photos. Some innocent, some clearly not, and then one line hit Ethan like a train. "Can't wait to have you in that same hotel again next Friday, room 214. The same night Claire said she had a networking conference out of town. Ethan stared at the screen, numb. The bracelet wasn't from the company. It was from him. He heard the front door unlock. Claire was home. Ethan closed the laptop slowly, methodically. He turned off the kitchen light and sat back down at the table, pretending he hadn't moved. She walked in cheerfully, coat still on, cheeks flushed from the cold. "Hey babe, sorry I'm late," she said, walking toward him. "Dinner was..." But she stopped mid-sentence when she saw the look in his eyes. He didn't say anything, just stared at her, waiting for her to say something. Anything that might make it all untrue. But all she said was, "Is everything okay?" And for the first time in years, Ethan realized he didn't recognize the woman in front of him. What will Ethan do now that the mask has fallen? You don't want to miss what happens next. The story is just getting darker. Keep watching, the next chapter changes everything. Ethan didn't sleep that night. He lay beside Claire, who fell asleep almost instantly, her breathing calm, her body relaxed, as if nothing was wrong, as if she wasn't living a second life behind his back. He stared at the ceiling, fists clenched under the covers, his mind playing those emails over and over like a looping nightmare. By morning, he had made a decision. He wasn't going to confront her yet. He needed to know everything first, and he needed proof. He took a sick day from work for the first time in years. Claire barely noticed. She was too busy packing for her company retreat, which just happened to align perfectly with the hotel date Julian had mentioned. Ethan watched her carefully as she chose her dress, her makeup, even the perfume she usually reserved for anniversaries. "Will you be okay without me for 2 days?" she asked sweetly, zipping her suitcase. "I'll miss you." Ethan forced a smile. "I'll survive." When she left, he waited exactly 10 minutes. Then he grabbed his keys, his phone, and the small black voice recorder he used for work meetings. He had never followed someone before, but that day, he followed Claire all the way to the Westmont Hotel on Lincoln Street. She didn't look back once. From the safety of his car, parked across the street, Ethan watched her meet a tall man in a navy coat, Julian. They kissed on the steps. No hesitation, no guilt, just chemistry. They disappeared inside together. Ethan didn't go after them right away. He couldn't. He sat there, hands shaking, his heart in pieces. Room 214, the room from the email. It took him 2 hours to build up the courage. 2 hours of asking himself, was this really happening? Could Claire, his Claire, do this to him? But when he finally entered the hotel lobby and asked for an extra key to room 214, claiming he had forgotten his own, the woman at the front desk barely questioned it. And when he stood in front of the door, he heard voices, laughter, Claire's laugh, and something else, the sound of wine glasses clinking. He pressed the recorder button, but before he could knock or turn the handle, he heard Julian say something that froze Ethan to the floor. "Do you think your husband suspects anything yet?" Claire laughed. "Not a chance, he's too trusting. That's what makes this so easy." Ethan staggered back. Her voice was light, almost playful, like she wasn't betraying the man who had shared 10 years of his life with her. He turned away, tears burning behind his eyes, and whispered to himself, "This isn't over." What Ethan does next will decide everything. Will he seek revenge, or uncover something even darker? Don't miss what's coming next. The story is about to explode. Stick around, the next chapter will change the game. Ethan couldn't shake the sound of Claire's laugh from his head. It echoed in his ears long after he left the hotel lobby. The words she said to Julian repeating like a curse. That's what makes this so easy. His chest burned with humiliation, rage, and something deeper. Betrayal that tasted like metal in his mouth. He drove aimlessly for an hour, his mind spinning. He thought of confronting her right then, but that would only give her a chance to twist the story, to lie her way out of it. She was good at that, too good. So instead, Ethan pulled into a parking lot behind a small diner and sat in silence. He opened his phone, found the audio file from the recorder, and listened again. It was worse the second time. Her tone wasn't just careless. It was proud, as if hurting him was a game. His fingers trembled as he typed out a message. It wasn't for Claire. It was for Julian. A simple, cold sentence. "She's not who you think she is. You'll find out soon enough." He hit send before he could overthink it. The reply came 2 minutes later. "Who is this?" Ethan stared at the screen, then typed, "Her husband." No answer, no 3 dots, nothing. That silence told him everything he needed to know. Julian wasn't just some random fling. He was part of something bigger. Ethan opened his laptop right there in the car and began digging. Julian's name, his LinkedIn profile, old company press releases. Anything that could explain how long this had been going on. And what he found chilled him to the bone. Julian wasn't just Claire's coworker. He was her boss, vice president of marketing, which meant every promotion Claire ever got in the past 2 years. Every overnight strategy meeting, every sudden raise, it all made a sick kind of sense. The affair wasn't just personal, it was professional, and it went back much longer than Ethan had imagined. Back at home, Ethan began printing emails, meeting invites, photos from Claire's public social media with vague captions like team building or networking dinner, all with Julian either cut out at the edge of the frame or tagged in the comments. He spread them all across their dining table. Claire would come home tomorrow night, and when she did, she'd find the truth waiting for her like a trap she walked into with her eyes wide open. The storm is building. Claire has no idea what is coming. Will Ethan finally get justice, or will everything spiral even further out of control? Don't miss the next chapter. It's where the fire starts. Stay with us. Things are about to explode in the next part. Claire walked into the house around 8:45 p.m. Her heels clicked against the hardwood floor, her voice calling out casually, "Hey babe, I'm home." Like nothing had happened, like she hadn't been sleeping with her boss for over a year. Ethan didn't respond. He stood silently in the dining room, arms crossed, his eyes fixed on the table. Claire turned the corner and froze when she saw it. Every photo, every printed email, every highlighted calendar event and social media screenshot, laid out like a crime scene. For a moment, the only sound was the faint hum of the refrigerator. "What is this?" she asked, her voice tight. "You tell me," Ethan replied coldly, "because from where I'm standing, it looks like my wife's been lying to me since the day she got that promotion." Claire glanced down at the pages, her face shifting through disbelief, then panic, then something Ethan hadn't expected. Defiance. "You went through my stuff?" She snapped. That was her reaction. Not shame, not regret, not fear. Accusation. "I recorded you, Claire," Ethan said, stepping closer. "I heard you and Julian in that hotel. Your voice, your laugh. You said this was easy dash, was it? Was destroying us easy?" Claire's eyes widened for a split second, then narrowed. "You don't understand how hard it's been for me," she said bitterly. "I gave up everything when we got married. Do you have any idea what it's like to watch your dreams fade while your husband plays safe and boring every day?" Ethan flinched like she'd slapped him. "You're blaming me for this?" he asked, stunned. Claire didn't answer. She just walked past him and poured herself a glass of wine, like they were discussing groceries. "I'm not the villain here," she muttered. "I just wanted something that felt exciting again." Ethan stared at her in disbelief. "You don't get to rewrite this story, Claire," he said. "You lied, you cheated, and you made me feel like I was crazy for suspecting anything." Her silence was louder than any apology. Ethan turned to the hallway and disappeared into his office. He came back holding an envelope. "What's this?" Claire asked. "Proof that I'm not crazy. Proof I've been watching for months. And divorce papers." Claire's hand trembled as she reached for the envelope. Inside were printed emails between her and Julian. Ones she thought she'd deleted, all signed with her personal email, all detailing times, dates, hotel names. It was over. There was nothing left to deny. But just as Claire began to speak, Ethan added, "Oh, and one more thing. Julian's wife knows now too. She and I had a very productive phone call this morning. Claire's face drained of color. In an instant, the power dynamic flipped. She wasn't in control anymore. Everything was crashing around her. And Ethan wasn't going to stop it. Not this time. Everything is unraveling. But the biggest twist is still ahead. Stay with us. Because in the next chapter, someone else enters the game and changes everything. The next morning, Ethan received a message from a number he didn't recognize. "Hi, I'm Leah. I'm Julian's wife. Can we talk?" He stared at the screen for several seconds, his stomach tightening. He hadn't expected her to actually reach out. He thought maybe she'd just scream or block his number. Instead, she wanted to meet. They agreed on a coffee shop downtown. Ethan arrived first, heart pounding, mind racing. When Leah walked in, she looked like she hadn't slept all night, but her expression was calm, controlled, focused. "Thank you for meeting," she said, sitting down. "Of course," Ethan replied. "I figured we might need each other." Leah didn't waste time. She pulled out a folder and opened it. Inside were printouts of texts between Claire and Julian that Ethan hadn't seen, private messages from a second phone Julian kept, photos from the same hotel rooms, plans for vacations, inside jokes, a whole secret life. "He used the same lies on me," Leah whispered. "Told me he was working late, traveling for business. I found this burner phone last week. That's how I knew." Ethan felt a chill move through him. If Leah hadn't found that phone, Claire might have continued the affair even after being confronted. "He promised her he'd leave me," Leah said bitterly. "Told her they could start fresh once his kids adjusted." "Kids?" Ethan asked. Leah nodded. 2, 9, and 5. Ethan leaned back. The betrayal suddenly felt even darker. "And Claire knew about them?" he asked. "Oh, yes," Leah said. "She wrote things like, 'You deserve better than that boring family life dash.'" The disgust on Ethan's face was immediate, but Leah wasn't done. "I'm not here just to compare wounds," she said. "I want him to feel this, not just some awkward separation. I want him to lose everything he thought he could get away with." For the first time in weeks, Ethan felt a flicker of power return to his chest. He didn't want revenge for revenge's sake, but he did want justice. And now, he had someone else just as motivated. "What did you have in mind?" Ethan asked. Leah smiled coldly. "Something public." Ethan's heart raced. "Claire just got promoted. She's going to present at a conference next week." He said slowly, "Julian is her guest speaker." Leah raised an eyebrow. "Perfect," she said. The pieces were forming. A plan. A reckoning. Not out of cruelty. Out of survival. Claire and Julian thought they had buried their tracks. But now they were walking into the spotlight, and Ethan and Leah would be waiting. The trap is set. But can revenge really bring peace? In the next chapter, see how Ethan and Leah's plan unfolds, and why nothing could prepare them for what happens next. The day of the conference arrived, and the tension was suffocating. Ethan sat in the audience, blending in among the sea of attendees, his eyes fixed on the stage. Leah sat several rows behind, wearing a calm expression that hid the storm brewing inside her. They had rehearsed every step of the plan, but now that the moment had come, it felt terrifyingly real. Claire took the stage first. She looked radiant, confident, dressed in a sleek black blazer and heels Ethan had bought her for their anniversary. She started her presentation with her usual charm, speaking about innovation, leadership, and integrity in the workplace. The irony made Ethan's jaw clench. Julian followed shortly after, joining her with a smirk only Ethan now saw as manipulative. The crowd applauded. Together, they presented like a perfect duo, charismatic, smooth, professional. But then the slideshow glitched. For a second, the screen behind them flickered, and then a new slide appeared. A screenshot, a message from Julian to Claire. "Last night was unreal. Can't wait to do it again. You looked incredible moaning my name." The room fell silent. Claire turned to look at the screen, her face draining of color. Julian froze mid-sentence. A murmur swept through the crowd, followed by gasps. Then another screenshot appeared, and another. Photos, texts, timestamps. The audience erupted into a mixture of shock, confusion, and whispers. Phones were already out. Someone had started recording. Claire stumbled a step back. Julian looked like he wanted to run off stage, but the images kept cycling. Ethan didn't move. He sat still, watching everything unfold like the climax of a film he never wanted to star in. But the pain was numbed by a strange sense of clarity. This wasn't revenge. It was exposure. A mirror turned toward two people who had destroyed others in the dark. Claire tried to regain control. "This is a mistake. Someone hacked. This is fake," she stammered, but no one believed her. Not when the proof was this clear. Not when Julian's face had turned the color of chalk. Security approached the stage. Organizers whispered to each other. One grabbed the microphone and announced an immediate break. Claire was escorted off stage. Julian followed like a ghost. Ethan stood slowly, feeling Leah's hand gently touch his shoulder as she passed him on her way out. No words were exchanged. They had done what they came to do. But as Ethan walked outside into the sunlight, a single question echoed in his mind. What now? He had exposed the truth, but what comes after the truth? Now that the world knows their secret, how will Claire and Julian react? And what will Ethan do with the silence that follows the storm? Stay with us as everything comes crashing down. The aftermath of the conference was a whirlwind. By the time Ethan returned home, the video of the exposed messages had already gone viral on social media. It had been shared on multiple platforms, with thousands of comments ripping apart Claire's polished image and Julian's carefully crafted career. News outlets had already picked up the story. Corporate power couple caught in scandal flashed across Ethan's phone. Claire tried to call him 12 times. Each time, he watched her name light up the screen and then disappear into silence. He wasn't ready to hear her voice, not when he could still see her smiling on that stage, pretending everything was perfect. While his world crumbled, instead he packed a bag. He didn't know where he was going yet. Maybe to a hotel, maybe to Leah's guest room, maybe just out of the city for a few days. He walked past the framed photo of their wedding day on the dresser and stopped. He picked it up, stared at it, and then quietly turned it face down. Meanwhile, Claire was drowning. At the office, HR had already summoned her and Julian for an emergency ethics inquiry. Julian, in an act of desperation, denied everything at first, claimed the screenshots were doctored. But as internal investigators dug deeper, more messages surfaced. It wasn't just one night. It had been going on for 6 months. Leah, who had silently observed it all, sent Ethan a simple message. "You deserve to know. You always did. I'm here when you're ready." That night, Ethan sat alone in his car, parked in the same garage where Claire had once met Julian under the cover of work hours. He stared out the windshield, watching people rush by, unaware of the personal earthquake that had shattered his marriage. But then something caught his attention. A notification from an unknown number. One photo, a blurry snapshot taken from across the office. Clearly a candid, Claire and Julian in a familiar embrace. The message below chilled his blood. "If you think that's the whole truth, you're wrong." He stared at it, heart pounding. Who sent this? Why now? And what did they mean by the whole truth dash? If everything Ethan just uncovered was only the tip of the iceberg, what deeper secrets are still hidden beneath? Who else knew? And what will he find when he starts digging further? Keep watching. What's coming next will change everything. Ethan couldn't sleep. That photo, the one with Claire and Julian, kept flashing in his mind like a broken reel. But it wasn't the image itself that haunted him. It was the message underneath. "If you think that's the whole truth, you're wrong." He stared at his phone until the battery died. Then, without even thinking, he drove to the office building. He knew the security guard on night shift, Old George, who owed Ethan a favor from years ago. With a heavy heart and a quiet handshake, Ethan was granted access to the upper floors. The empty halls whispered secrets. He found Claire's office. Everything looked untouched. Her framed diploma, the motivational quotes on the wall, the mug that read Boss Lady. But the drawer in her desk wasn't locked. Inside, Ethan found a flash drive labeled private. He hesitated, but only for a second. Back in his car, laptop open, rain pounding on the windshield. He inserted the drive. What he saw wasn't just personal messages. It was footage, dozens of clips from a hidden security camera inside one of the executive meeting rooms. Claire and Julian, laughing, drinking, kissing, plotting. In one recording, Julian said, "He's too blind to notice. But if we get that promotion together, we'll have enough leverage to push him out completely." Claire responded with a laugh Ethan had never heard before. "Let's just keep playing sweet. By the time he figures anything out, it'll be too late." Ethan's hands were shaking, but then came the final clip. This one wasn't a meeting. It was a setup. Julian and Claire were talking about forging emails to implicate Ethan in a data leak scandal. One that could get him fired and possibly blacklisted in the industry. Claire's voice dropped to a whisper. "If we do this right, he won't just lose his job, he'll lose everything. And he'll never suspect it was me." Ethan slammed the laptop shut. It wasn't just betrayal, it was destruction, and she had planned every detail. His heart pounded not from heartbreak, but from fury. She hadn't just cheated, she had tried to erase him from his own life. The next morning, Ethan met with the company's legal team and presented the footage. Julian was terminated immediately. Claire, facing criminal charges, was escorted out of the building in tears. But Ethan didn't stay to watch. He walked out into the bright morning light. Finally free, weeks passed, and while the dust settled, Ethan received one final message. It was from an unknown number again. Just one sentence. She wasn't working alone. He froze. There was more? Someone else had been pulling strings behind the scenes? The story wasn't over. Not yet. And now the question burns. Who else was in on the plan? What else has been hidden from Ethan all along? Let us know your theory in the comments. And if you think you've seen betrayal, think again, because sometimes the real enemy is the one you never even suspected.